Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have a story that serves as a vital lesson in real estate, boundaries, and why you should always take photos. This isn't just about a bad neighbor, this is about an entitled jerk who thought his money and his status meant he could ignore city ordinances and property laws, all at the expense of someone else. But what he didn't realize was that our narrator, Sarah, is not the kind of person who backs down. When he literally flooded her life and her newly renovated basement, she didn't just ask for repairs. She launched a meticulous, targeted legal counterattack that leveraged years of his illegal behavior. Grab your popcorn, because this legal takedown is one for the history books. Let's get into it. My entitled neighbor ruined my newly renovated basement by illegally diverting water. When I demanded 000 for repairs, he sent his lawyer to laugh at me. I responded by filing 13 separate code violation complaints and demanding legal discovery. The judge didn't laugh. When I bought my house 3 years ago, it was a dream come true. It was a 1950s ranch, small but solid, sitting in a fantastic, rapidly appreciating neighborhood. I'm a project manager for a construction firm, so I saw potential where others saw peeling paint. My plan was simple: spend a few years fixing it up, increasing the value, and creating a perfect, cozy home for myself. The house came with a neighbor, Gary, who was the definition of entitlement. His house was older, larger, and historically belonged to his family, which he used as justification for everything. From day one, there were boundary issues. My property line was clearly marked by an old, half-collapsed chain-link fence, but Gary treated my side like an extension of his own cluttered yard. The first incident was minor but set the tone. I caught Gary using a corner of my driveway to store an old, rusting boat trailer. When I politely asked him to move it, he actually scoffed. "Oh, this," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "It's been there for 20 years. No big deal. Just leave it." I explained that I needed the space for construction deliveries. He huffed and puffed, complaining about new people coming in and changing everything, but he moved it, eventually. That exchange taught me 2 things about Gary: 1, he believed his history in the neighborhood trumped my legal deed, and 2, he wasn't going to respect my boundaries unless he was forced to. So, I started documenting. This is where my job came in handy. As a project manager, I live and breathe documentation. I started a dedicated Google Drive folder labeled Gary. Every interaction, every encroachment, every misplaced item, I photographed. I timestamped it. I noted the weather conditions. I was meticulous. I even pulled the official city survey maps to confirm my property lines, walking the perimeter and placing small, permanent markers. The documentation really ramped up when I started the big renovation project, the basement. My house had a partially finished basement that was notorious for being damp. My plan was to gut it, install proper drainage, seal everything correctly, and turn it into a beautiful home office and guest suite. This was my baby. It took 6 months of planning and another 4 months of grueling, expensive work. New concrete, new plumbing, full waterproofing, drywall, and custom built-ins. I poured about $70,000 and every ounce of my free time into that space. Throughout the renovation, Gary was a constant thorn in my side. He constantly complained about the noise, the dust, and the construction workers. But the real problem was his drainage system. His backyard was slightly higher than mine, and the main drain for both properties ran right along the shared boundary, partially on my land. I had a licensed plumber assess the drain while we were waterproofing the basement, and they noted that Gary had illegally tapped into the main line years ago to divert runoff from a large, newly built patio he had added. They warned me it was non-compliant and likely stressing the system, but since it wasn't currently causing a leak, they recommended I bring it up with Gary, or hire a lawyer. At the time, I didn't want to start a full-blown war, so I opted for a polite, certified letter explaining that his tie-in was causing structural issues and needed to be reviewed by the city planning department. Gary's response? A sticky note left on my door that read, mind your own business, city girl. I filed the certified letter along with photos of his illegal patio diversion into my Gary folder. I figured this was just groundwork for a future fence dispute. I had no idea it was the foundation for a nuclear lawsuit. It all came to a head about 2 weeks after the basement renovation was officially completed. I was sitting down there enjoying my new office, the smell of fresh paint still lingering, feeling incredibly proud of what I had accomplished. Then, I heard it, a low, gurgling sound coming from the main drain access point. I went to investigate, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Thick, black, foul-smelling water was backing up. And not just water, it was sewage, rising rapidly. I scrambled to grab towels, but it was useless. The pressure was enormous. Within an hour, my pristine, brand-new, $70,000 basement was a sewage-soaked disaster zone. The drywall was soaked, the new carpet was ruined, and my custom desk was sitting in 2 inches of toxic filth. I called the city immediately. The emergency crew arrived within the hour, wearing hazmat suits, and they determined the cause almost instantly. The main line had failed, and the primary stressor was the illegal, non-compliant diversion Gary had built years ago to connect his patio drainage. The excessive water flow and the shoddy installation had finally destroyed the pipe right where it crossed the property line. The city crew shut down the line, but the damage was done. My basement was condemned until professional remediation could be completed. The remediation company gave me an initial estimate, $38,500 just to clean, dry, rip out the ruined structures, and neutralize the biohazard. This didn't even include rebuilding the walls and replacing the custom furniture. I was physically shaking when I walked over to Gary's house later that day. He was sitting on his porch, sipping a beer, acting like nothing was wrong, despite the flashing emergency lights across the street. "Gary," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "the city just confirmed that your illegal drainage connection caused the main pipe to fail. My basement is flooded with sewage, and you are responsible for the damages." He took a slow sip of his beer and raised an eyebrow. "Sewage, huh? Sounds like your problem, Sarah. Should have waterproofed better." "It has nothing to do with waterproofing. It was a pipe failure caused by your unauthorized construction. I have the city's report right here." I showed him the emergency repair report. He just waved his hand again. "Look, I'm not paying for your little plumbing issues. If you want to talk about it, have your lawyer call mine. Have a good evening." He then went back to ignoring me. That moment of arrogant dismissal sealed his fate. I didn't have a lawyer yet, but I knew I needed one. I went straight home, or rather, to the hotel I was now staying in, and pulled out the Gary folder. The next day, I contacted the best property dispute lawyer I could find. I walked into his office with a banker's box full of documents, photos, certified letters, and city code printouts. He was a seasoned guy, looked skeptical at first. But as I started presenting my case, not just the recent flood damage, but the years of encroachment, the non-compliant patio, the ignored warning, his skepticism turned into focused interest. "Most people bring me 3 blurry photos and a handshake agreement," he said, flipping through my labeled, chronologically ordered photos. "You have documented this man's illegal activities better than the city inspector has." We started with a demand letter, $45,000 for remediation and damages. Gary's lawyer responded exactly as Gary had, arrogantly and dismissively. Their letter simply stated that the claim was without merit, that the pipe was old, and that my remodeling must have stressed the system. They offered $5,000 to make this go away. My lawyer, Mark, called me immediately. "They're being jerks. They think you're just a homeowner trying to shake them down. They assume you'll fold." "Don't fold," I told him. "We're not just suing for the flood damage. We're going nuclear. I want to file a civil suit for the damage, but simultaneously, I want to file every single code enforcement complaint I have documented." Mark smiled, a sharp, predatory look flashing in his eyes. "You want to weaponize the city codes?" Yes, I confirmed. I have photos and code citations for the drainage diversion, the unauthorized storage of flammable materials on the property line, the encroachment of his retaining wall by 3 inches, and 5 separate instances of illegal dumping in the shared easement. I want to hit him from every angle. So, we filed the civil suit for damages. But the real fun started with the legal discovery phase. In civil court, discovery is where both parties are legally required to turn over all relevant information. Gary's lawyer had clearly assumed this would be a quick, minor case they could settle out of court for pennies. They asked for my evidence regarding the flood. What they received was not a few blurry photos. What Mark sent them was a massive, indexed binder of evidence, complete with certified witness statements from my original plumber and the city emergency crew, a detailed estimate for the $38,500 remediation, and, this was the kicker, a formal request for Gary's complete planning and construction permits related to his patio and drainage system from the last 10 years. Gary's lawyer was furious. They called Mark immediately, accusing us of being overly aggressive and trying to complicate a simple matter. Mark simply replied, "My client is claiming damages caused by your client's non-compliant construction. We require documentation proving that construction was legal." The moment Gary's lawyer realized that Gary had 0 permits for his patio and drainage, because he thought he could skip the permits and save a few $1,000s, the temperature of the case dropped 20 degrees. Gary was already facing a major civil judgment, and now he was potentially facing massive fines and a mandated teardown from the city for illegal construction. But I wasn't done. Simultaneously, I filed those 13 separate code violation complaints with the city's building and environmental departments, submitting my evidence binder directly to them. This forced the city to send out inspectors, who quickly confirmed the violations, especially the illegal drainage diversion that led to the pipe failure. The city hit Gary with stop work orders, massive non-compliance fines, and, most importantly, a mandated order to demolish the offending section of his patio and excavate the illegally placed drain within 60 days. This meant he had to pay to fix the drain, pay the fines, and tear down a huge chunk of his gorgeous outdoor living space. The final court hearing was surreal. Gary looked pale, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by pure fear. His lawyer, now looking much less confident, tried to argue that the damage was unavoidable, an act of God. Mark stood up, holding my thick, indexed binder. "Your Honor, the defendant claims this was unavoidable. We submit evidence showing the defendant was warned, via certified mail, about the non-compliant nature of his construction. We have photographs, dated and timestamped, showing multiple instances of the defendant's construction violating city code and his personal items encroaching on the plaintiff's property. The defendant chose to ignore warnings and disregard the law, directly leading to the catastrophic failure that flooded my client's home with raw sewage." He presented the initial certified warning letter, filed 2 years before the flood, side by side with the city's demolition order. The contrast was devastating. The judge, a serious woman who clearly had no patience for neighborhood spats turned legal disasters, looked at Gary's lawyer. "Counselor, your client had clear warnings regarding this drainage issue, and the city has confirmed multiple code violations directly related to the cause of the damage. What is your argument for mitigating the liability?" Gary's lawyer stammered, trying to deflect, but it was over. The judge hammered Gary. She ordered him to pay the full $38,500 in remediation costs, plus another $10,000 for the replacement of my custom furniture and loss of use of the space, totaling $48,500. She also tacked on $12,000 for my legal fees, emphasizing that the case was needlessly complicated by the defendant's obstruction. But the sweetest part wasn't the money. It was the mandated repair. Gary had to pay a crew to come in, excavate the drain, fix the pipe, and, according to the city's order, remove the illegal patio extension he had built. He literally had to tear down the very thing he had illegally constructed, which had been the source of his entitlement for years. As we were leaving the courtroom, Gary tried to catch my eye. He mumbled something about how I had overreacted. I just smiled, looking him right in the face. No, Gary. You underestimated me. And you chose to break the law. You had years to apologize or comply. You chose arrogance. That was the price of your entitlement. The money transferred within 2 weeks, under strict court order. The legal fees covered my lawyer, and the rest covered the entire rebuild of my basement, which is now better than ever. And every day, I get to look out my window and see the gaping hole where Gary's illegal patio used to be, a testament to the power of meticulous documentation and knowing exactly when to stop being polite. My home is safe, my boundaries are established, and Gary is currently trying to sell his house, presumably before the city slaps him with any more fines related to the remaining violations I reported. As for me, I'm already looking for the next house flip, and I'm definitely bringing my camera. What a beautiful lesson in boundaries and receipts. Sarah didn't just win the case, she executed the perfect pro-revenge. The key takeaway here, folks, is document everything. It's the ultimate defense against entitlement. Now, I want to know, what was your favorite piece of evidence Sarah used against Gary? And if you had an entitled neighbor, what would be the first thing you started documenting? Let me know in the comments below. If you loved this sweet taste of justice, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell. See you in the next one.